I almost didn't tell the story because what happened at that wedding still divides people to this day. Some say the bride was protecting her image, others say she humiliated the wrong woman. Sometimes the loudest lessons don't come with shouting. Sometimes they come with silence. And that night, silence spoke. She stood at the entrance of the wedding hall, blocking the door. The glass reflected golden light from inside. Crystal chandeliers shimmered behind her. Soft violin music floated into the night air. Vanessa Cole adjusted her posture. Perfect spine, perfect smile, perfect white satin gown sculpted to elegance. Then she placed her hand against the chest of the woman standing before her. "She's not coming in dressed like that," she whispered. But it wasn't really a whisper. The bridesmaids heard, the usher heard, and the guests, pretending not to stare, definitely heard. Mama Ifunanya Okoye stood still. Petite frame, navy lace dress, pressed neatly, low heels slightly worn. Small leather purse clasped gently in both hands. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft. "My son is getting married." Vanessa's smile didn't break. "Yes, he is, and today is very important." Her eyes moved slowly over the lace. "We worked very hard to make this wedding elegant." Elegant. The word hung like perfume. Clean, pressed, modest, but not designer, not expensive, not impressive. And to Vanessa, that was the problem. Inside the hall, Daniel Okoye stood at the altar, adjusting his cufflinks. 34 years old, corporate attorney, measured, calm, precise. He believed conflict was unnecessary noise. He believed love solved tension. He believed Vanessa respected his family. The hall shimmered under gold light. Atlanta's elite filled the seats. Law firm partners, real estate investors, entrepreneurs Vanessa admired, a few politicians, and several people Vanessa hoped would remember tonight. This wasn't just a wedding, it was positioning. At the entrance, Vanessa lowered her voice further. "There's a boutique next door. I can have something brought quickly." Mama Ifunanya shook her head gently. "This is what I have." A slight breeze passed between them. Vanessa leaned closer. "Today is not about you." Mama nodded. "You are right." Then she added quietly, "But I raised the man you are marrying." The air shifted. Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Yes, and now he's building something bigger. Bigger, better, higher." Behind them, a bridesmaid whispered, "Vanessa." But Vanessa didn't move. "This is my wedding." Inside, the music changed keys. The coordinator signaled 3 minutes until procession. Mama Ifunanya looked through the glass. She saw her son adjusting his tie, the same way he used to adjust his school uniform when he was 12. She remembered sewing that uniform by hand because the store version cost too much. She remembered staying up past midnight, hemming trousers while he slept. She remembered counting coins on the kitchen table. She remembered pretending she wasn't hungry. She remembered kneeling beside her bed, praying for his future. She never asked for applause. She never asked for recognition. She only asked that he rise. And now he had. Vanessa crossed her arms lightly. "I don't want people asking questions." "What questions?" Mama asked softly. Vanessa hesitated. Questions about class, questions about background, questions about where Daniel truly came from. Because Vanessa had spent years polishing his story, polishing her story. Today, together, they had crafted something sleek. Tonight was proof. "There is a cafe down the road," Vanessa said finally. "Maybe you can wait there until the reception." That was the line. Mama Ifunanya felt it settle in her chest. Not anger, not humiliation, something quieter. She straightened her shoulders. "May God bless your union." And she stepped back. Then she turned. She didn't rush. She didn't argue. She simply walked away. Inside the hall, Daniel felt something he couldn't explain, like a chord slightly out of tune. He glanced toward the doors. He didn't see her. He told himself she was seated in the back. That was her way. Never loud, never center stage. The music swelled. The doors opened. Vanessa entered glowing. Guests stood. Phones lifted. Daniel smiled. She looked radiant, composed, victorious. No one inside knew what had happened 5 minutes earlier. Pastor Raymond Hill stepped forward. 62 years old, voice like steady thunder. Family, he began warmly. We gather here today not just to witness a union, but to honor the journeys that brought us here. His eyes moved across the congregation slowly. Marriage is not just about two people. It is about the roots that shaped them. Vanessa's fingers tightened around her bouquet. Daniel nodded politely. But before we proceed, the pastor paused. The violin softened. There is something that weighs on my spirit. A ripple moved through the room. Vanessa forced a smile. Daniel blinked. Is the groom's mother present? Silence. Daniel turned toward the doors. The back row shifted. No movement. She was here, Daniel said quietly. I saw her outside, an usher admitted from the side aisle. Vanessa's heart skipped. She must be packing, she said quickly. The pastor folded his hands. We will not continue without the woman who carried this young man into this world. The weight of that sentence pressed into the room. Daniel stepped down from the altar. I'll check. But before he reached the aisle, the side doors opened, and Pastor Hill entered, beside Mama Ifunanya. She walked calmly, the navy lace now visible on the chandelier light. Whispers erupted like wind through leaves. Daniel froze. Mama, she smiled gently. I did not want to disturb. His eyes searched her face. Something wasn't right. Were you leaving? She hesitated, just a second too long. Pastor Hill stepped forward. Before vows are made, he said, voice steady, foundations must be honored. The room quieted again. This building nearly closed 12 years ago. Confused glances exchanged. Bankruptcy, structural damage, lawsuits. Daniel looked toward Vanessa briefly. Vanessa's throat tightened. But one quiet investor stepped forward through our church development fund. The pastor paused. She requested her name never be announced. Guests leaned forward. She provided the majority capital that restored this hall. A murmur rolled across the seats. And because of that investment, the pastor turned slowly. The woman some of you may have overlooked, Vanessa's breath caught, is the majority owner of the hall in which we stand. Silence, total, absolute. No violin, no whisper, just stillness. Daniel looked at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. The ownership records are public. Pastor Hill continued calmly. Filed under the Okoye family trust. Trust, Daniel whispered. Mama Ifunanya met his eyes. I did not want you to feel pressure. Pressure? You worked hard for your success. I wanted it to belong to you. Her voice did not shake, because love is not an announcement. The words settled over the hall like a verdict. Vanessa felt heat rise up her neck. The bridesmaid avoided her eyes. Daniel turned slowly toward her. Why wasn't she inside? Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it. She told me to wait at a cafe, Mama said gently. Gasps echoed. I was protecting the atmosphere. Vanessa burst out. This night matters. My mother matters, Daniel said. Not loud, but final. You were embarrassed? The word hit harder than shouting. Silence stretched again. Vanessa looked around the room. The investors, the partners, The guests she wanted to impress, they were not looking at her with admiration anymore. They were looking at her with understanding and disappointment. Truth stood in the center of the aisle, clean, unavoidable. Vanessa stepped forward, slowly. Her voice trembled now. I was wrong. The room held its breath. She turned to Mama Ifunanya. I am sorry. Not polished, not rehearsed, real. Mama studied her face long enough for the lesson to settle deeply. Then she spoke softly. Respect builds stronger than pride. Daniel took his mother's hand. Then he extended his other hand toward Vanessa. Do you still choose this woman? The pastor asked. Daniel paused, long enough for everyone to feel it. Yes. Then he added quietly, but never again above my mother. Vanessa nodded through tears. I understand, and this time she did. The ceremony resumed. The vows were spoken, but the real covenant had already been made. That night, pride walked into a hall, dressed in silk, and humility owned the building. Mama Ifunanya took her seat in the front row, where she had belonged all along. Sometimes the loudest power is the quietest one, and sometimes the people we try to hide are the ones holding everything together. If you were Vanessa, would you have done anything differently? This is Midnight Baobab, where every secret has roots. The reception began with cautious celebration. Music returned, glasses clinked. Guests tried to pretend nothing unusual had happened, but something had shifted. Not in the room, in the people. Vanessa stood near the edge of the dance floor, holding a glass she hadn't sipped from. Her bridesmaids circled her carefully. One leaned closer. You didn't know, she whispered. Vanessa shook her head slowly. No, but that wasn't the full truth. She didn't know about the building, but she knew she had been ashamed, and that knowledge felt heavier. Across the room, Daniel stood beside his mother. He hadn't let go of her hand for several minutes. Mama, why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. She smiled faintly. Because you needed to believe your success was yours. It is mine. Yes, she said, and now you know it was never fragile. Daniel looked around the hall differently now. The chandeliers, the marble floors, the investors shaking hands. His mother had walked these floors long before tonight, not as a guest, as an owner. He swallowed. I left you outside, he said softly. You did not know, but she did. Mama Ifunanya did not answer immediately. Instead, she asked gently, do you love her? Daniel looked toward Vanessa. She stood, rigid, composed again, but smaller somehow. Yes, he said. Then teach her, Mama replied. Teach her what? That dignity does not wear labels. Across the room, Vanessa watched them. She had always admired Daniel's calmness, his restraint, his ability to stay steady. But tonight she saw something else, loyalty. And she realized something she hadn't expected. She had married a man rooted deeper than she understood. The DJ announced the first dance. Daniel extended his hand toward Vanessa. She hesitated. Then she took it. As they moved slowly under the chandelier, light, she spoke quietly. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I know, Daniel said. I was trying to protect us. From what? She didn't answer, because the answer felt childish now. From judgment, from assumptions, from whispers about where we came from. Daniel's voice softened. My mother never hid where we came from. Vanessa swallowed. I did. The music shifted. People watched them differently now. Not with envy, but with awareness. Later that evening, Pastor Hill approached Vanessa near the dessert table. Young lady, he said gently. She straightened instinctively. Yes, Pastor. Embarrassment is a heavy thing. She nodded. I thought I was protecting something. You were, he replied, but not what you thought. She frowned slightly. Image protects ego. Respect protects legacy. The words lingered. Vanessa looked toward Mama Ifunanya, who was seated comfortably at a table near the front. Guests now approached her respectfully, asking questions, listening, learning. No one looked at her lace dress anymore. They looked at her eyes, and something inside Vanessa softened further. Later, after the reception had quieted and guests began to leave, Daniel stepped outside for air. The night was cooler now. City lights shimmered beyond the parking lot. He heard slow footsteps behind him. Mama? She stood beside him. I am proud of you, she said, simply. For what? For standing, he shook his head. I almost didn't. But you did. They stood in silence for a moment. I was ashamed once, too, she added quietly. Daniel turned. When? When you were younger. When we could not afford what others had. She looked up at the building. I felt small. What changed? She smiled. I realized small things grow roots. Daniel exhaled slowly. I don't want to lose her. Then don't. After tonight? Tonight was not destruction, she said gently. It was correction. Inside the hall, Vanessa removed her heels and sat alone briefly at the edge of the stage. She replayed the moment at the door, the hand on the chest, the cafe suggestion, the whispers. She felt the weight of it now. Not humiliation, clarity. Daniel returned inside and sat beside her. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then she said quietly, I thought people would judge us. They would. And you're okay with that? He nodded. I am not ashamed of my roots. She looked down. I was. He reached for her hand. Then let that end tonight. Tears gathered again. Not from embarrassment this time, but from release. Near midnight, as staff began clearing tables, Vanessa approached Mama Ifunanya alone. No crowd, no spotlight, just the two of them. I was wrong, she said again, softer now. Mama studied her carefully. Why? Vanessa hesitated. Because I thought success meant distance. And now? Now I think it means foundation. Mama's expression softened. You will learn. I want to. You will, Mama repeated. Then, gently, she reached forward and adjusted the bride's necklace slightly. A small gesture, but it felt like acceptance. When the final guest left and the hall grew quiet, Daniel turned off the last row of lights. Only a few chandeliers remained glowing. He looked around the empty space. Earlier it had been full of expectation, then tension, then revelation. Now it felt calm, grounded. He walked to the front row, where his mother had sat. He placed his hand on the back of the chair. This was yours, he said softly. She shook her head. No, it was ours. Outside, as they prepared to leave, Vanessa paused at the entrance door, the same doors she had blocked earlier on. She looked at the threshold, then she stepped back slightly. She waited. Mama Ifunanya exited first, then Daniel. Only then did Vanessa follow. It was a small gesture. No one saw it, but it mattered, because pride had entered first, and humility left first. Sometimes justice does not come as punishment. Sometimes it comes as perspective. Sometimes it does not destroy, it reveals. And that night, what was revealed was not wealth, it was character. Mama Ifunanya did not need applause. She did not need announcement. She did not need display. She only needed dignity. And dignity once exposed cannot be unseen. If you were standing at that door, would you have acted differently? Would you have protected your image or honored your roots? Because in the end, image fades, but roots remain. This is Midnight Baobab, where every secret has roots.